Renu Rana Ra.
On this occasion I will convey the history of Ogedei Khan. Ogedei Khan ruled the Mongol Empire from 1229 to 1241. He was the third son of Genghis Khan, the empire's founder. Ogedei's accomplishments included creating a new capital at Karakoram, establishing a system of regional governance and taxation, and defeating the longtime enemy of the Mongols, the Jin state of northern China. Ogedei Khan enjoyed many other military victories in Western Asia from Afghanistan to Georgia, and the great cities of the Bulgars and Rus were sacked as his armies swept ever further west and attacked Poland and Hungary. Just as the Mongols seemed about to sweep through Europe, the invaders returned home following news of the great Khan's death of either a stroke or organ failure in December 1241, most likely brought on by one of the heavy drinking bouts for which he was infamous. Ogedei was born, circa 1186, the third son of Genghis Khan, the founder of the Mongol Empire. He had three brothers, Joki, Shagatai, and Talyui. Like them, Ogedei assisted his father on several military campaigns, notably against the Khwarezm Empire from 1219 to 1225. Before he died of natural causes in 1227, Genghis Khan had instructed that his empire be divided into 4 khanates with each of his sons ruling one of them. Ogedei was selected to rule above his siblings as the Great Khan or Universal Ruler, a position he was formally awarded in 1228 at the Kurultai Conference of Mongol tribal chiefs. Genghis, meanwhile, was buried in secret in the vicinity of the sacred mountain Berken-Kulden, and Ogedei sacrificed 40 slave girls and 40 horses to accompany his father into the next life. Ogedei was a surprising choice for Khan because he already had a reputation for often being drunk. He was chastised for his drinking by his brother Shagatai but, not being unaware of the problem, Ogedei did offer to have a supervisor check how much alcohol he drank and to limit the number of cups per day to a specified number. Ogedei then made sure he was always served his favorite tipple in very large cups. Neither had Ogedei shown any great particular promise as a military commander. He was, however, likable and willing to take the advice of his more senior ministers and commanders, essential qualities in the complex web of Mongol clan politics. Most importantly of all, he was his father's choice, and Genghis Khan was now already seen as a deified spirit whose word was law. Thus, Talyui, who had been acting as regent, handed over the reins of government to Ogedei and a new era of Mongol rule began. Ogedei Khan had an immediate problem in the first years of his reign in that his state treasury was empty and his followers and armies needed booty to reward them for their loyalty and keep them together. One solution was for Ogedei to impose taxes on the peoples his father had conquered. This idea is traditionally credited to Yelu Chukai, a Khitan who was one of Ogedei's senior ministers and who is credited with coining the maxim, "You can conquer an empire on horseback, but you cannot govern it on horseback." Chutsai's role in government may have been exaggerated by ancient Chinese sources and, in any case, taxing rather than outright confiscation was hardly a new policy to better govern a territory. Consequently, members of the imperial bodyguard and ministers were charged with acting as regional governors and supervising the local inspectors who had to actually collect the tax. This plan was aided by the creation of local branches of government made up of a mix of officials and imperial clan leaders. The system was a success, even if it later led to abuses. Taxation and governance were made more efficient in 1234-6 when a census was conducted across northern China, and by the parallel apparatus of Jarkusi, officials who checked that clans received the war booty due to them and who eventually became coordinators and administrators in other government business, too. With his bureaucracy in order and income stabilized, Ogedei was ready to embark on expanding his territory. There was one essential ingredient still missing from his empire, though. He still did not have a capital. The Mongol Empire urgently needed a capital city where revenue could be accumulated and some attempt at a centralized government could be made. In short, the nomadic Mongols needed to make themselves a lot more stationary and put down some permanent roots. Ogedei began this process by ordering the building of a walled capital in 1235. The place was to be Karakorum in the Orkhon Valley, 400 kilometers southwest of the present capital of Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar. The city was not large, only 10,000 people at its height resided there, but it was cosmopolitan and would be the first of the Mongol capitals that would later include Daidu and Xanadu. Ogedei himself never lived at Karakorum, preferring instead to roam his empire and stay in the traditional camps of yurt tents. The Khan did visit occasionally and even had a great silver drinking fountain set up in his palace there that served all manner of alcoholic beverages from spouts shaped into snakes and lions. Karakorum, despite needing to have hundreds of cartloads of food shipped in to feed its population, became an important logistics center and repository of the empire's resources. In addition, many merchants traveled there, encouraged by its location on the Silk Roads and the Khan's generous prices for their goods. Consequently, the city soon boasted large and regular markets. In time, fine stone buildings were erected by followers of Taoism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. Karakorum was not only connected to other parts of the empire by roads which were patrolled to make them safe from robbers, but Ogedei also greatly extended the messenger system that spread across Mongolia and even developed a system of passports so that messengers could receive various entitlements at the many rest stations. The Khan was responsible, too, for the innovation of protecting hundreds of wells with high walls so that regular water supply could aid the movement of armies and merchants across Asia. The Mongol armies under Genghis Khan had been tremendously successful, but occupation had not been attempted in most of the conquered territories. For this reason, Ogedei needed to send troops back to extract tribute in such places as Persia, Afghanistan, and Siberia. The priority, though, remained their old foe the Jin state in northeast China, still ruled by the Jin Jurchen dynasty. Ogedei and his brother Talyui both participated, but the army was led in the field by the gifted general Subutai, known as one of the Four Hounds of the Khan. The Mongols attacked the Jin in 1,230-1. Although successful, Talyui died during the war, but just how is not known for certain. The Jin capital of Kaifeng fell after a lengthy siege in 1233, and one final campaign in February 1234 brought about the suicide of the Jin emperor, Aizong, and the total and final collapse of the Jin state. Meanwhile, and not for the first time, Korea also faced Mongol armies on its lands from 1231. As a consequence, the Korean state of Goryeo was forced to move its capital to Ganghwa Island in 1232. While the ruling elite was safely ensconced on their island, the rest of the Goryeo population had to face 6 Mongol invasions over the next 3 decades until peace was finally made in 1258. With northern East Asia subdued, the Mongols were now in a position to raid southern China, then controlled by the Song dynasty. That particular prize would have to wait until the reign of Kublai Khan to fall into Mongol hands, though, as Ogedei turned his attention elsewhere. On the western side of the Mongol Empire, campaigns were launched in Afghanistan and northern Iran throughout the 1230s, attacking the Khwarezmians following the return from exile of their troublesome leader Jalal al-Din. In 1235 northern Iraq was invaded. Victory followed victory, and the Mongol armies pushed into Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia in 1238, steadily wearing down the fortified towns of the region, sacking such cities as Tiflis and extracting tribute from local princes. There was then a campaign, led once again by Subutai, which marched through Kazakhstan/Uzbekistan to attack Eastern Europe around the Volga River from 1236 to 1242. The army consisted of some 150,000 men and pushed northwards in 5 different divisions, eventually reaching as far as eastern Hungary and southern Poland and defeating the Bulgars and Rus along the way. Great cities like Kiev, Krakow, Buda and Pest were sacked and looted. Mongol scouts were then sent ahead of the army as far as Bohemia and Vienna. For the first time, the Western world was presented with the horrifying sight of the seemingly unstoppable war machine that was the Mongol hordes. Fortunately for Europe, in early 1242, the Mongol armies turned for home. They had heard news of Ogedei Khan's death and a successor now had to be chosen. On December 11, 1241, Ogedei, having laid down the foundations for a governable empire that now spanned the whole of Asia, died at the age of 56, perhaps from a stroke or organ failure, although there were rumors, too, of poisoning. He was succeeded by his son Gayuk in 1246 after a brief stint as regent by Ogedei's wife Torjine. Ogedei's own choice for his successor was first his son Kochu, but when he died prematurely, he then chose Kochu's son Shirman. This choice was ignored by the Mongol tribal leaders, perhaps because Ogedei's final years had seen him decline further and further into alcoholism and he no longer carried the demigod prestige his own father had enjoyed. As it turned out, Gayuk's reign as the third Khan of the Mongol Empire would last a mere 2 years. Gayuk had never been a popular choice, and many nobles, whose loyalties were divided amongst Genghis Khan's descendants, disputed the decision, hence the delay in his nomination after Ogedei's death. It is likely Gayuk was poisoned by a rival. After 2 more Khans and 2 regents, the next big step forward for the empire came during the reign of Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis who conquered most of what remained of China from 1275 and so caused the collapse of the Song dynasty in 1279. Kublai then proclaimed himself emperor of the new Yuan dynasty in China. Over the next 2 decades, China would become entirely dominated by the Mongols. The Mongol Empire would then go on to more campaigns, including in the Middle East, Korea, and Japan with varying success but ultimately creating one of the largest empires ever seen. That's the history that I can convey this time. I hope it's useful. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe.